Okay, hello everybody. I'm here, Adam, and this is my mentor teacher, Niall Jones. He's
Hello.
going to be joining me on this journey. Niall, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. My name is Niall Jones. I have been teaching for about 6 years now, about 5 years at Shanghai Star River Bilingual School. Previously, I taught 1 year at Elite Cradle Primary School in Zhengzhou. Prior to that, I graduated in 2012 from Central Michigan University with a Bachelor of Arts in Education, elementary education, and did my student teaching. I'm a state certified teacher in the state of Michigan.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, wealth of knowledge from this guy, so we're going to learn a lot. So the first, we have several talking points.
Sure.
If I could just borrow you, take a minute of your time here.
Sure.
First talking point, we're going to talk about the classes that we can expect to teach here at SSBS in our first week going through this program. So what I would like is for you to explain, because Niall is also a CDC member, Curriculum Development Community, well, pretty much the head of the department here at the school.
Oh, yes. I apologize. I forgot to add that currently at the school, because I've been teaching here for 5 years, this year and last year I served as a Curriculum Development Committee member. I started that last year, and I'm continuing it this year. I'm a veteran teacher here, meaning it's a leadership position. Prior to that, I was a grade leader. I was in charge of basically organizing responsibilities within second grade for the expat teachers here.
Fantastic. So as our CDC member, head of the department here, what can we expect in that first week when we put together these classes?
Well, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to hit on the Common Core standards, which the school has implemented a new curriculum that follows Common Core, because they're very passionate about following an American curriculum, considering a lot of these students look in the future to travel and study abroad, mostly in American universities. So we really want to emphasize Common Core standards. Common Core standards following English, which we just started implementing about 2 years ago, and then Science and Social Studies as well, which we've just started implementing now. So it was a little bit of a tough task trying to tackle a new curriculum, but I think the team worked very well together, and getting the support from other teachers, that getting their advice, getting their input. We worked, I think, very well implementing the new Science and Social Studies standards.
Yeah, I think we did a great job.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to our next talking point here, which is classroom routines and expectations. So, as you know, with we had this the first meeting that we had 3 long years ago. Back the first meeting that we had, we were talking about the importance of classroom management.
Absolutely.
And certainly routine is everything. We both are teaching second grade here, so with the younger learners, the little guys, you got to have a ironclad routine that they can follow every single day. And I feel like my routine is pretty sound for the most part, but you have to be open, of course, for the different situations.
Sure. See what works. See maybe if something isn't quite working for you, you might need to alter it a little bit. Not maybe rewrite your entire routine,
Right.
but make slight alterations to it. Routine is, of course, one of the most important things, as we know from second grade teachers. Teaching the young ones, classroom management is perhaps one of the most, if not the most important skill to have. Because we don't only want to set our routines, we need our students to clearly understand the expectations that we hold for them. We need to be clear in our expectations, and we want to be somewhat simple in our expectations so that we don't overwhelm them. Because these are young children, we want them to be able to understand and follow these routines and expectations without overwhelming them too much.
Yeah, certainly, and sometimes it's a balancing act when you have these expectations, because you want to push. We're trying to get them ready to go into the higher grades.
Absolutely.
And, how many times have you gotten that message, oh, what's the homework? These kind of things like that.
Exactly.
So it can be kind of a juggling act, but yeah, fantastic. So we both agree routine is everything.
Routine is incredibly important, especially for young learners. Absolutely.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so let's move on to our next thing we're going to be talking about, which for the TeachNOW program, we use the in-task standards. And so they're basically just some standards, some kind of rules that you set that everybody abides by, that that kind of, for lack of a better word, just it's like an expectation for your classroom, like how the things are going to go.
Yeah.
So we got a couple different points. There's 10 of them, but we're going to talk about just 4 today in the interest of time.
Sure.
So the first one is the learning environment. So the question I've got for you today: what is the best piece of advice that you could give to a teacher as far as setting up the ideal learning environment?
Well, of course, with young learners, and I mean, I guess this applies to any group of learners, but you want a safe and caring environment more than anything. Children need to feel safe. They need to feel welcome. They need to feel cared for, and especially these days with how education is evolving, what we are striving to get more than anything is a student-centered learning environment, where teachers are facilitators and not lecturers. We want to make sure that we limit our lecturing. We want to make sure that our classroom is more than a place of just memorizing facts and memorizing information. We want our children, our students, to be curious learners. You know, the ideal classroom in the end is one that is full of more questions than answers. We want students to be asking questions rather than just giving answers. We don't want to create a rote learning environment where we basically impart to our students, memorize this, memorize this, memorize this, take a test, memorize this, memorize this, memorize this, take a test. We're trying to expand the learning environment to basically have a constructivist way of looking at something where it is student-centered. The students are the ones that are seeking the knowledge, and the teachers are there to facilitate and assist and to help learners uncover this knowledge on their own.
So it's more about fostering that kind of innate curiosity that the children have, encouraging that,
absolutely,
pushing it forward. Great, thanks for that. That's a wonderful answer. Okay, so the next one we've got is learning differences. So as you know, all students learn very differently.
Sure.
Some are visual learners, some are kinesthetic.
Absolutely.
You know, there's many different ways that kids learn. So that being understood, why is it important that we take a holistic approach when we put together our lesson plans?
Well, I think that you nailed it at the beginning when you were saying that, is that as future educators, or the future of education and the way that education has been evolving, we have to understand, and we realize now with new research that's being done in child development, that not all learners learn at the same speed. They don't learn at the same pace. They don't learn the same way. So we want to make sure for our learners that we are hitting upon all those different learning styles, that we vary our lessons up. We cannot just focus on one style of learning, because it's only going to help those certain students, and then the other students are going to fall behind. They're going to become disinterested. They're going to become frustrated, especially if they can't understand, or it's not at the same level that the teacher deems is, okay, this is an appropriate level. You might be having some of your learners falling behind. It's very important to vary our lesson plans to include all styles of learning.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. So, yeah, that actually segues really well into our next talking point, which is differentiation. And so it's my understanding of lesson differentiation is basically the willingness to make small changes to how the lesson material is taught in order to teach all the students the material according to their specific learning styles and abilities. So this sounds simple in practice, but to actually implement it,
it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And educators to this day are finding that while research shows that differentiated learning does promote long-term success for students as well as short-term success, the problem is that, do we have enough time? Is there enough time? And that's one of the major problems that educators face today, is not only the planning time, because designing and implementing student-centered activities that include differentiated learning instruction takes extra planning time, but also, do we simply have enough time in our lesson to do that? Especially when we have to, practice over and over and over with the kids how we want this to do, because differentiated learning doesn't just mean sit in a group and talk with each other. You know, they need to be assigned roles, they need to have tasks to perform, they need to feel like they're working towards a goal to obtain.
Absolutely. Wow. So all of a sudden it comes from, you know, having one task to many, many irons in the fire.
Absolutely. It's a very slippery slope. It's something that needs to be implemented. It's just, as we're learning more and more about it, it's hard to address the needs of all learners while also still having enough time to get through the content that we need to get through.
Yeah, and I think one thing where people get hung up on this is, you know, with differentiation, they think it needs to happen all at once. And in fact, you can just start implementing little bits of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So work in progress with that. All right, let's move on to our next talking point here. So now we have motivation. And, you know, as you know, motivation is key for any successful classroom. But the teacher shouldn't necessarily feel like they need to be a clown up there juggling for the kids or a cheerleader, you know, go, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. So what's, you know, just personally, you quite experienced now in the classroom, what is your favorite tool or technique for increasing the motivation of your students?
And as you said, I don't think that a teacher needs to necessarily be a clown or do a juggle or a dance up there, but it is really important for students, especially young learners, that you show enthusiasm. I think being enthusiastic, being excited about what you're teaching is going to rub off on the students. Even something as simple as that. I would say that in order to motivate students, have them work in teams, have them work together, whether that's pair group, teamwork. Again, going back to differentiated learning, motivation can come down to how you've planned out your lessons. How many of those different style of learners are you engaging? For me personally, I want to make sure that I'm engaging the students as often and as able as I can. Because if students are actively engaged, they're going to be motivated to want to learn more. Also, installing some sort of positive negative reinforcement system, especially a positive reinforcement system that, you know, you can get prizes for, and students have goals to work for, and even just making sure, again, going back to those objectives, that students are in clear understanding of what their objectives are, to avoid any confusion, because confusion leads to frustration. Frustration is going to lead to, you know, learners kind of turning their brains off, becoming disinterested, not wanting to participate, and then kind of falling out of the lesson.
Yeah, and then once they start going down that road, you know, it's very hard to get them back.
Absolutely. It's incredibly difficult.
Okay, well, yeah, that's pretty much what I needed you to talk about today. The last little thing is the TeachNOW grading rubric, which is basically, it's just a sheet that you're going to be looking at my lessons and kind of ticking the boxes, making sure I'm hitting all the things I need to talk about during the course of my lesson. Is my plan, you know, does it make sense? Does it follow the standards? Does it build upon previous material?
Sure.
Is there a clear objective? Is there a clear goal in mind? So for that, that's something you're going to take a look at when we actually start reviewing lessons. But in the meantime, thank you very much for your time.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to it.
We're going to go on this journey together. It's going to be a great one. Take care now.